Today I'm going to demonstrate how to replace a windshield wiper motor on a Honda Accord. The first thing we need to do is remove the wiper arms. So to do that, there's two nuts, one under each cap on this side and one on this side. So it's a 17mm nut. Just going to loosen that and remove the nuts. And I'm going to remove the nut on this side. Then I'm going to lift up on the wiper arm. Then I'm going to remove the wiper arm. And I'm going to remove the wiper arm from the passenger side. Remove that. Next you need to remove all the clips that hold the cowl on. There was one here that I tried to remove and it went flying. Then I'm going to pull back on the windshield rubber. And then we need to slowly remove this coil. It's all held in by clips. So I'm just going to come in from the top here and slowly pry up on it. And then once I lift this out, I can remove this side. Now over here on this side there is a rubber piece here and then a rubber piece on the back here. You can then lift it over the wiper motor and remove it. And just be careful with this because your windshield washer nozzle is attached here. This here is the wiper transmission assembly and this is the motor. There are 4 10mm bolts, 2 over here and another 2 over there. They need to be removed in order to take the assembly out of the windshield cowl. Now it helps to move the second piece out of the way. It's just held in by clips. I'm going to start by removing this 10mm bolt here and then this one over here. And then this 10mm bolt over here. And this 10mm bolt on the bottom here. And when you remove these bolts, you'll notice that there's actually a rubber bushing around here to prevent this from vibrating. Next I'm going to remove this electrical connector. Alright, now I'm going to attempt to remove this transmission assembly with the motor out of the vehicle. This is how the windshield wiper mechanism works. It's actually pretty cool. Once the assembly is out, I can squish this tab and remove the electrical connector and remove the assembly from the vehicle. So this here is the wiper transmission assembly in the park position with the wipers in the down position. If you zoom in here, you'll see that there's 3 little slashes on the housing and an arrow on the arm. Those have to line up for it to be in the park position. So in order to remove the motor, there's actually these 3 10mm bolts as well as the center nut that need to be removed next. Next I'm going to remove this 17mm nut. So I'm just going to undo this 17mm nut, remove the nut, and there's also a lock washer. Now I need to free this arm from the shaft of the motor, so I'm just going to use a flat blade screwdriver and free it. So after a little bit of encouragement I was able to get the linkage off and I can unscrew my 2 10mm bolts all the way out and then remove the motor from the assembly. This here is the old motor out of the car. At this point you can just go ahead and replace the old motor. But since I'm inquisitive, I just want to see what's under these covers. Just pry this open and you can see the gear mechanism inside. So how this works is we've got the input for the electronics up here. That goes to your contacts over here which powers the motor. The motor has an output spiral gear that goes to this gear and then out to your output shaft to power the windshield wipers. Now sometimes these links break, so you might have to replace them. Next I'm going to take my replacement motor and reinstall it into the transmission housing and then reinstall the 3 10mm bolts. And once those are nice and snug, we're going to take this back over to the vehicle. Now this part's pretty important. We're going to next plug in the motor but still leave this linkage loose. Then I'm going to cycle the motor twice. Now what this does, it zeroes the position of the motor since we moved it with the linkages off. So then I'm going to replace the linkage and make sure that this arrow lines up with these markings here. Then I'm going to replace the lock washer and the 17mm nut. Now in this case, since we don't want to touch the timing and we can't get a ratchet on there, I'm just going to use a open-end wrench to tighten the 17mm nut down. Once the nut has been tightened down, I can then verify the timing to make sure that these marks line up when it goes back to the home position. Next I'm going to replace the assembly back into the car. Next I'm going to replace the 4 10mm bolts that hold the wiper assembly to the body, and then replace the other 2 on this side here. And then we're just going to tighten this down with the ratchet, nice and snug. Alright, next I'm going to replace the black plastic cover that goes over the cowl. I'm just going to position it over the shafts for the windshield wipers. And then this side goes on top of this side. Like that. And once everything's roughly in its spot, I'm going to clip it down. Make sure all the clips engage. And then I can push this down and clip this in. And then replace the little upholstery clips. Next I'm going to replace the rubber that goes along the top of the windshield here. And then I'm going to replace this black plastic cover. Next I'm going to replace the windshield wipers. I'm going to install them in a lowered position and then install the 17mm nut, and then we'll just snug that down. I'm going to go install the driver's side wiper. Slide it onto the shaft, making sure that the wiper's in the home position. Then I can go ahead and install the 17mm nut and then replace the dust cap. Finally, we're going to make sure that both wipers work properly. Well, that's not going to work.